On my 30th birthday, my husband handed me divorce papers, a $6 million debt and full custody of our daughter, then kissed another man on the street. I died in that moment, but fate gave me a second chance. This time I wore the mask, set the trap, and watched them destroy each other. He broke his vows. I built an empire. The first thing I saw when I opened my eyes was red. Bright red. Red, double happiness, characters plastered on the frosted bridal suite window. Red candles flickering in the corner. Red silk bedding scattered with red dates, longans, peanuts, and sunflower seeds, symbols of fertility and prosperity. Red ribbons and balloons cluttering the floor like an over-decorated lie. I blinked slowly, willing my heartbeat to calm, but it only thudded louder in my ears. This room. This bed. This exact moment. It was all the same. Because this was my wedding night. My mouth was dry. My body stiff in the corseted bridal gown. My hands trembled against the silk sheets, but not from nerves. From fury. As I remembered everything. I remembered what happened after this night, after I smiled through the toasts, after I folded into Logan Carter's arms like a dutiful bride. I remembered the exact day 3 years later, when that same man sat across from me at the dinner table and casually pushed divorce papers and a joint debt agreement toward me. "Let's end things peacefully," he had said. Panical. Not a shred of guilt. I remembered my hands shaking as I flipped through the dense legal language, barely able to process what I was reading. He was taking full custody of our daughter. There would be no division of assets. Worse, he'd buried us in $6 million of debt I didn't even know existed, and he wanted me to share it. I remembered running to his parents' house to get my child, only to find them gone. Vanished. Like I never existed. My number blocked. My name erased. And then, barely a day later, I saw them. Logan and Jason Lynn. His so-called cousin. Kissing. Brazenly. Right there under the flickering streetlights, like I had never been part of the story. I stood frozen across the road, soaked in rain and disbelief, holding the necklace our daughter made me from beads and string. The image seared into me. Logan cupping Jason's face, whispering something that made Jason smile like a lover. Like someone who had won. I was still reeling when the headlights came. A truck barreling forward. Too fast. Too close. I didn't even scream. Just impact. Metal. Screeching. Then darkness. But now here I was. Back in this cursed bridal suite, my body whole, my lungs heaving with air that smelled of champagne and perfume and betrayal. Alive. But not the same. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, my bare feet brushing the cold marble floor. My head spun, not from dizziness but clarity. This time I wouldn't wait to be discarded. I wouldn't wait for Logan to steal everything I had. I wouldn't raise another child just to have her ripped away. This time I would take the lead. From beyond the door, laughter erupted, deep and rowdy. Logan's friends. Still drinking. Still celebrating. Still clinking their glasses to a marriage built on lies. In my past life I had heard those same voices and smiled politely. I'd waited patiently in this very room, nervous but hopeful, thinking Logan would come to me eventually. He hadn't. He had passed out on the living room couch. I wiped his face with a warm towel. Tucked a blanket around him. Sat beside him on the floor like a loyal wife. Like a fool. This time I crossed the room with calm precision. At the vanity I stared at the version of myself I used to be. Porcelain skin, gold jewelry, thick makeup masking the exhaustion. I peeled off the earrings and necklace one by one, placing them neatly beside the mirror. The weight they'd left behind on my skin felt symbolic, like a chain finally unclasped. I picked up a cotton pad and slowly removed my lipstick, my eyeliner, the foundation. One layer at a time I stripped away the bride I used to be. What was left wasn't soft. It was sharp. I sat in silence for a long time, just listening to the laughter fade beyond the walls. Soon they'd leave just like last time. Logan would stagger into the apartment too drunk to speak and collapse on the couch. The beginning of our marriage had ended that way before. But this time I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't cling. I wouldn't try to be enough for a man who never wanted me in the first place. I wouldn't ask why. I already knew the answer. Jason Lynn had always been there. Too close. Too watchful. He wasn't just Logan's cousin, he was Logan's first love. His real partner. His secret. They had used me. For legitimacy. For inheritance. For a child. In the end, I was nothing more than a placeholder. A convenience. A bank account with a heartbeat. And when they were done with me, they discarded me like garbage. Not this time. I stood and walked to the window, pushing the curtains aside. The city lights glowed below, soft and golden. Somewhere out there, Jason was probably waiting. Or texting Logan. Or gloating. Let them. Let them think I was still that same Claire. Passive, trusting, vulnerable. The more secure they felt, the deeper they'd fall when I pulled the ground from under them. The front door creaked. The living room light dimmed. Footsteps shuffled unevenly. I didn't move. I already knew what I'd see if I opened the door. Logan slumped on the couch, drunk and lifeless. Probably loosened his tie. Maybe one shoe off, the other forgotten. Just like last time. So I stayed in the bedroom, calm and quiet. And waited. Eventually the apartment went silent. I moved to the closet and pulled out a soft robe, slipping out of the bridal gown and laying it carefully across the armchair. It looked like a costume now. Like something borrowed from a stranger. I slid into bed and turned off the bedside lamp. In the darkness I whispered aloud, not a prayer. A vow. Logan Carter. In this life I won't be your wife. I'll be your reckoning. And I closed my eyes. Not as the bride. But as the hunter. Logan didn't remember anything the next morning. He grunted when I brought him warm tea laced with honey and lemon. His head was pounding, his eyes red. Just like the last time, he didn't make it to the bedroom. He'd passed out on the couch, one arm dangling off the edge, shoes still on, tie crumpled on the floor. I knelt beside him and placed the mug into his hand like a good little bride. He muttered a thank you without looking up. I smiled. Let him think everything was fine. Let him think he was still in control. While he nursed his hangover and grunted through his shower, I calmly retrieved his phone from the coffee table. His passcode was still the same, 1103. Jason's birthday. My stomach churned at the thought, but I held steady. I had seen it enough times over his shoulder in our last life to memorize the digits. I tapped them in and the screen unlocked. I moved quickly. I'd already researched the app one needed in my previous life, cloaked in tech forums and encryption blogs, buried under user reviews and stealth guides. In under a minute, I installed a monitoring program that would allow me to access his messages, call history, app activity, location, and even deleted data in real time. The interface vanished as soon as I clicked install. Pling. Invisible. Logan wouldn't even know he was being watched. I placed the phone back exactly where I'd found it, screen side down. Step 1, complete. When Logan finally left for work, I watched from the bedroom window as he got into his car and drove off. The moment the tail lights disappeared around the corner, I slipped on a coat and grabbed my tote bag. I had things to secure. At the bank, I converted the $500,000 my parents had left me into a 10-year fixed deposit under my maiden name, with emergency-only withdrawal conditions. It wasn't just hidden, it was sealed. No one could touch it, especially not Logan or anyone connected to the Carter family. Then I visited a private vault facility and placed the deed to my family home inside a safe deposit box. The same home Logan had tried to sell behind my back in our previous life. I still remembered the moment I realized it had been signed over without my consent. This time it was under lock and key. Let him try. Afterward, I stopped at a small cafe, ordered a coffee and pulled out my phone, the real one. The mirrored interface came alive. I scrolled through Logan's messages. Dozens of chat threads. Mostly work, some group chats, and then one pinned at the top, marked simply J. Nazar Amulet. Jason Lynn. My stomach clenched, but I kept reading. Jason. She's working again? Are you sure she's not catching on? Logan. Relax. She's clueless. Still baking banana bread and writing to-do lists. It's her comfort zone. Jason. Just don't get soft on her. You're not the only one in this marriage, remember that. I exhaled slowly. Defensive. Paranoid. Jason wasn't just Logan's lover. He was his handler. And he didn't like competition. I sipped my coffee and leaned back. Interesting. That afternoon, I visited the one person I could still trust in this life. Jamie West. Jamie had once been my mentor at the art gallery where I interned during college. Back then, I left to marry Logan thinking I was choosing love over ambition. Now, with nothing but betrayal behind me and vengeance ahead, I needed a stable place to stand. Jamie's gallery hadn't changed much. Still elegant, still moody in its lighting and crisp in its curation. A haven of color and clarity. Clare Bennett. Jamie looked up from her desk with mild surprise. Well, that's a face I haven't seen in years. You survived the Carter wedding circus. I smiled. Barely. Think you'd have space for a part-timer? Jamie tilted her head. You just got married. That's why I need something that feels like mine. She studied me for a beat then nodded. You're hired. Commission-based. Flexible hours. I remember your work. You'll do fine. By evening, I returned home with a new ID badge clipped inside my bag and a contract signed under my name. As I walked through the door, Logan looked up from the couch with a puzzled expression. You went out. I kicked off my heels casually. Had to run a few errands. Shopping. I paused. Actually, I went to Jamie West's gallery. His brows furrowed. Why? I'm going back to work. The air shifted. You're working again? He asked, trying to sound light. I smiled. Just part-time. It's good for my mind. Jamie offered. Logan stood slowly, running a hand through his hair. Claire, I don't think that's necessary. We just got married. We should be focusing on the next steps, not running around to galleries. Next steps. He stepped closer. Like starting a family. But there was the setup. Just like last time. In my previous life, this had been the beginning of the end. Logan had slowly convinced me to quit my job, stay home, raise our daughter alone while he built his dream. I'd believed every word. Every excuse. Until he took her from me. This time I didn't flinch. Of course, I said sweetly. But we're still young. I just want to explore this a little. Build a foundation. It'll be good for our future baby too, don't you think? He hesitated. Then, to my amusement, he sighed dramatically and gave me a one-armed hug. Fine. Just don't let it stress you out. Oh, Logan. I'm just getting started. Later that night, while he was in the shower, I checked the mirrored app again. Jason had messaged. Jason, why the hell is she working again? You were supposed to keep her busy at home. Logan. She says it's temporary. I'll talk to her. Jason. I don't like it. You're getting sloppy. I stared at the screen, tilting my head thoughtfully. Jason was afraid. Good. He should be. Over the next week, I settled into a pattern. At home, I played the doting wife. I packed Logan's lunches. I smiled at his mother's microaggressions over the phone. I even discussed paint swatches for the nursery we weren't going to build. At the gallery, I re-entered a world I once loved. Helping clients, consulting on curation, painting again in stolen afternoon hours. Jamie gave me full freedom and the space became my sanctuary. But even at peace, I was always watching. Every message. Every transaction. Every app Logan downloaded. Every time Jason panicked and Logan coddled him. It was all data. And I was building my case. One evening, Logan came home with a bottle of wine and an armful of groceries. I thought we could cook together, he said, clearly expecting a gold star. I raised an eyebrow. You want to cook? He smiled, a little sheepish. Trying to be a better husband. I watched him move into the kitchen, clumsily chopping vegetables and humming an off-key tune. He looked so human. If I hadn't known what I knew, I might have believed it. But I did know. I knew the truth behind his smile. And very soon so would the world. Logan had a new scent on his collar that morning. Cedarwood and black pepper, Jason's signature cologne. I'd once complimented it, thinking Jason just had good taste. Now I knew better. He sat at the kitchen counter sipping his coffee, scrolling through his phone. I placed a warm croissant on his plate and poured fresh orange juice without a word. Big meeting today? I asked sweetly, brushing crumbs off the marble counter. He didn't even look up. Sort of. Lunch with an investor, then a stop by the office. Sounds important. He grunted in agreement, still scrolling. It was 8:03 a.m. I smiled to myself. Logan wasn't meeting any investor. He was going to see Jason. He left 20 minutes later and I slipped into motion. Black jeans, oversized hoodie, ball cap. No perfume. I pinned up my hair tight and secured a surgical mask over my face. By 9:10 I was outside our building in a cab, following him from a safe distance. The car he drove, a charcoal gray BMW with a minor scratch near the rear bumper, was easy to spot in traffic. I followed 2 blocks behind, then transferred to another cab when he reached Midtown. He parked across from a boutique fitness center and walked in through a side alley. I knew this building. The last time I came here was with Logan, in my last life. He said he had a consultation meeting and asked me to wait in the car. That had been the first time I'd ignored my gut. Not this time. I stepped out of my cab and followed on foot, ducking behind a delivery truck just as he emerged from the other side of the alley with Jason. Jason was wearing sunglasses and a cap, trying to look inconspicuous. It didn't help. He was still too polished. Still too smug. They didn't hold hands. But they didn't need to. Their bodies moved in sync like two magnets that always found each other. They walked several blocks, chatting closely, before slipping into a dim, inconspicuous bar wedged between a laundromat and a ramen shop. The sign above the door simply read, "The Ark." So that's where they hide. I didn't follow them in, at least not yet. Instead, I went to the pharmacy down the block, bought a hairbrush identical to mine, and pulled loose strands of my real hair from my jacket, slipping them between the bristles. I stashed the brush in my purse. Back at the bar, I waited until the bartender stepped outside for a smoke break, then approached him with a charming smile. "I'm looking for someone inside." My husband and his friend came in. Tall guy in a gray suit, the other one had sunglasses. He nodded. "Back booth. Mind if I run something into him?" "Left this in the car." The bartender shrugged. "Go ahead." I stepped inside, eyes down, careful not to meet anyone's gaze. The lighting was moody. Indigo and violet hues reflected off dark wood. The scent of alcohol and leather clung to the air. I moved fast. As I passed Logan's booth, I accidentally brushed the back of his seat, sliding my brush along the fabric and leaving behind a few long, dark strands. Jason didn't notice. Yet. I walked right past them to the restroom, flushed the toilet for effect, washed my hands and slipped out again without a glance back. I sat at a coffee shop across the street with my phone in hand, watching the mirrored screen feed from Logan's device. At 11:07 a.m. Jason messaged him. "Jason, there's hair on your jacket." "Logan." "What? Where?" "Jason. Long dark. Not mine. Unless you've switched types." I stifled a laugh behind my cup. Logan didn't reply right away. I imagined his awkward glance down at his shoulder, brushing the strands off in a panic. Perfect. At 11:15 Jason stormed out of the bar. At 11:16 Logan chased after him. I leaned back inside. God, that was satisfying. Later that evening I returned home to find Logan already there, nursing a beer and sulking on the couch. "You're home early," I said cheerfully. He looked up and forced a smile. "Long day. Do you want me to heat up some soup?" "No," he muttered. "I'm fine." He barely spoke the rest of the night. I let him brood. Let him wonder. Let him stew in the doubt Jason had planted. Jealousy was such an effective tool. Especially when wielded by someone who played the good wife so well. 2 days later everything shifted. I got a call from the hospital at 7:42 in the morning. Logan's father had suffered a stroke. By the time I arrived, Logan was pacing in the hallway while his mother cried softly in a corner. The doctor said the stroke had been moderate but dangerous. Mr. Carter was conscious but paralyzed on one side. He would need extensive rehabilitation. I stood there, expression neutral, nodding solemnly. Logan turned to me as the doctor left. His eyes were bloodshot, voice hoarse. "My mom can't do this alone." "I know," I said gently. "She's not strong enough to take care of him full time." I waited. Then he said it. "Would you stop working at the gallery for a while? Just to help out?" But there it was. The second time he asked me to give up my job. In my last life I'd said yes without hesitation. This time, I smiled. "I'm so sorry, Logan. But I can't." His brow furrowed. "You can't." "I'm about to be promoted," I lied smoothly. "Jamie said I'm showing real potential. And you said yourself, your mom has high blood pressure. What if she collapses while taking care of him? So that's exactly why We should hire a nurse," I said, cutting him off kindly. "Someone trained. It's the safest and smartest option." Logan looked like he was chewing glass. But he couldn't argue. Not without exposing the fact that this wasn't about family. It was about control. That night, I curled into bed with my phone and checked Logan's messages again. Jason hadn't contacted him since the bar fight. Instead, I noticed a curious new number showing up in Jason's history. Multiple texts. Encrypted attachments. My eyes narrowed. I copied the number and ran it through a social search. The name that popped up? Mr. Chen. meant nothing at first. But with a little digging, thanks to some contacts I made through Jamie's more elite art buyers, I discovered exactly who he was. Wealthy. Married. In his 50s. Heavy investor in entertainment and modeling startups. And definitely not related to Logan. Jason was hedging his bets. If Logan sank, he was already lining up a new lifeboat. I hired a private investigator the next day. Professional. Discreet. Not cheap. Follow Jason Lin, I said. He's seeing someone behind my husband's back. I want everything. Photos. Video. Hotel logs. Names. Give me proof. The man raised an eyebrow. Not worried about what I'll find? On the contrary, I said, zipping my purse. I already know what you'll find. I just want it in 4K. At home I was sunshine. I served tea to Mrs. Carter and spoke gently to Logan's father, even though he could barely grunt in return. I nodded along to Logan's business updates and offered encouraging smiles. He thought I was stable now. Content. Safe. But underneath the apron and soft words I was tightening the noose. Let Jason chase his investor. Let Logan doubt both of us. Because while they danced in the dark, I was building the trap. And I would be the one to turn on the light. It didn't take long. The private investigator I hired delivered exactly what I'd asked for. High-resolution, time-stamped, utterly damning photos of Jason Lin. There he was, straddling the line between arrogance and desperation, walking into the penthouse suite of the Grand June Hotel. Not once. Not twice. 3 times in 1 week. Each time he was accompanied by Mr. Chin, the older investor he'd recently started courting behind Logan's back. Married. Influential. Discreet until now. And they weren't just having tea. The final set of images showed Jason in a hotel robe, leaning against the window of the suite with nothing but a glass of wine in hand. He was smiling. Mr. Chin was behind him. My investigator gave me a smug little wink as he passed me the envelope. Told you I was good. You're worth every penny, I said, tucking the proof neatly into my bag. Now let's see how well Jason can walk, when the floor collapses under him. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. Jason had just landed a major runway appearance. A comeback gig after months of media silence following the bar disaster. It was a luxury jewelry brand launching a gender-neutral collection. Bold, high-profile, and widely covered by the press. I made sure I got in. With the help of one of Jamie's longtime clients, I secured a staff pass to the event, allowing me access backstage for design consultation. No one blinked twice. I wore black slacks, a white blouse, and pulled my hair into a bun. Professional. Forgettable. Invisible. Jason wouldn't even recognize me. The day of the show I arrived early. The backstage area was a chaotic hum of makeup brushes, steamers, and clipped instructions. Jason strutted through the space like a prince surveying his court, smirking, confident, completely unaware he was walking into a trap. He was wearing a silky black and white striped shirt, tucked into stark white trousers. Gold and platinum jewelry shimmered at his wrists and neck. He was the centerpiece of the show. The final walk. Even better. I found his water bottle near the rack labeled with his name. I slipped a small vial from my coat pocket. The laxatives I'd purchased from a boutique pharmacy on the outskirts of town. Organic, expensive, fast-acting. Advertised as explosive in under 5 minutes. The cap twisted with a click. A few drops. Shake gently. Done. I set the bottle back and vanished into the crowd. The show began at 4 p.m. By 4:18 I was seated in the second row front and center. The room buzzed with anticipation. Lights dimmed. Music swelled. Models began strutting down the runway, streamlined, stoic, mechanical. The jewelry caught the light in rhythmic flashes. I kept my gaze fixed on the curtain. Jason was the finale. The moment he stepped out, the crowd reacted. Gasps, flashes, whispers. He did look stunning. Cat-like grace, high cheekbones sharp under the lights, the jewelry catching the spotlight like fire. But I wasn't watching his face. I was watching his posture. The shift in his expression. The twitch at the corner of his mouth. The slight tremble in his abdomen. And then, panic. He stiffened mid-walk just as he reached the midpoint of the runway. His lips pressed into a thin line. His eyes widened ever so slightly. The audience didn't notice. Yet. But I did. I knew that look. I'd tested the dose on Logan's dog last week. It had kicked in within minutes. Jason's breath hitched. His steps faltered slightly then resumed. He clenched. Too late. A loud noise pierced the silence. A fart. Undeniable. Amplified by the acoustics. Confused murmurs rippled through the audience. Jason kept walking, barely, but the strain was visible now. Sweat beaded at his hairline. His eyes darted left and right like a hunted animal. Another burst. And this time something more followed. A dark stain bloomed across the back of his pristine white trousers. The crowd gasped. One woman dropped her program. A photographer lowered his camera. A child in the second row covered her mouth. Jason froze. Then, the unthinkable. From backstage, a small dog, someone's emotional support pet, broke free from its handler, barked, and sprinted onto the runway. Right. He panicked. Tried to back away. Too late. The dog lunged at the smell, biting at Jason's pants and shaking its head wildly. Jason let out a strangled yelp, lost his footing and fell, flat on his back. The jewelry clattered against the floor. The dog barked and pulled harder. The fabric tore clean through. Jason's legs flailed. Half the audience stood. Some reached for their phones. Some already had them out. By the time security finally tackled the dog, Jason's white trousers were in tatters, hanging off one ankle. His boxer briefs were exposed, also stained. It was chaos. And it was beautiful. I stood calmly watching it all unfold. The cameras. The screams. The flashes of phones. Jason curled into himself like a shamed animal trying to crawl backstage. His face was twisted, not just in pain but in sheer disbelief. He didn't know how this happened. But I did. I walked out of the venue unnoticed, just another blurred face in the departing crowd. By the time I got home the clips were already online. #JasonLynMeltdown was trending within the hour. Some of the headlines made me laugh out loud. Runway royalty or runaway bowels? From gold chains to stained shame. Jason Lyn's jewelry show disaster. Model bites it, literally. Dog steals spotlight at luxury event. One blogger even called it the most chaotic finale in fashion history. I poured myself a glass of wine and watched each new upload with a little more satisfaction. Logan didn't come home that night. He was probably trying to keep Jason from losing what little career he had left. I didn't care. Let them scramble. Let them panic. Let them clean up messes I hadn't even finished making yet. By morning Jason was all over the news. No brand wanted to be associated with him. His agency pulled his profile from their site. The luxury label released a statement calling it an unfortunate personal incident unrelated to the integrity of the collection. Within 3 days Jason's name was mud. A ghost in an industry that no longer had room for embarrassment. Logan came home looking like he hadn't slept in 2 days. His hair was a mess. His shirt wrinkled. His eyes sunken. I set down my tea gently as he walked in. He didn't speak. Just collapsed into the armchair and buried his face in his hands. "You look tired," I said calmly. He grunted. "Long week." No response. I leaned forward, voice soft. "If there's anything I can do." His head snapped up but he quickly looked away again. "No. Nothing. I need rest." I gave him a gentle smile. "Of course. Dinner's on the stove." He nodded. "Thanks." But his eyes were haunted. And he hadn't even seen the worst yet. It was almost poetic how fast Jason fell. I watched the unraveling begin over coffee. The first leak hit a small but well-connected gossip blog, known for breaking scandalous stories just hours before the major outlets confirmed them. The photos were sharp, intimate, damning. Jason and Mr. Chen. Inside the Grand June Hotel. Jason sitting on Mr. Chen's lap. Jason kissing his neck. Jason, shirtless, holding a glass of wine while Mr. Chen massaged his shoulders. Each shot carefully selected. Just enough to stir rage. Just enough to confirm suspicion. Just enough to destroy reputations, without a single word of commentary from me. I submitted them anonymously, attached with a short tip. Power, money and betrayal, all in one suite. Check who owns the jewelry Jason Lyn wore on the runway. It wasn't paid for. And the internet did the rest. By noon, every gossip site had picked it up. By evening, even the business networks were in on it. Luxury investor in alleged romantic scandal with male model. Chen Holdings CO under fire for inappropriate relationship with public figure. Jason Lin. Career crashed, now cancelled? Mr. Chen's name trended on both WeChat and Twitter. By the next day he had resigned. By the third his wife filed for divorce. Jason meanwhile was blacklisted by his agency and publicly dropped from 2 endorsement deals. A third brand, ironically the one whose runway he'd soiled, issued a harsh statement declaring a zero-tolerance policy for inappropriate or unprofessional behavior, both personal and public. I sat in my sunroom, legs curled under me, sipping chamomile as I watched the fallout on my tablet. Logan hadn't come home in 2 nights. I didn't ask why. I already knew. I'd seen the messages. Jason, you think this was just me? You think I seduced him? He's the one who begged to invest. Logan, what did you expect me to do? Defend you? You've ruined everything. Jason, you were supposed to protect me. You said you loved me. Logan, and you said you'd be discreet. Jason, I want you to fix this. Logan, fix yourself first. That was the last message they exchanged. Jason was out. Logan was alone. Me. I was exactly where I planned to be. Logan returned late on a Thursday night. His shirt was rumpled, his shoes scuffed, and there was a bitter edge to his silence. He didn't mention Jason. Didn't mention the scandal. Didn't even say hello. He simply poured himself a drink and stared at the empty fireplace. I let the silence sit. Let him stew in it. Let him feel the absence of control. The next day I noticed something missing from my jewelry box. A ruby-studded tennis bracelet. My mother's gift on my graduation. Gone. So was the sapphire ring Logan had given me during our honeymoon. I felt the blood drain from my face. But I didn't react. Dad, I checked the safe. 2 more pieces gone. Then the bank. One of our joint accounts had a $7,000 withdrawal from the night before. Logan had started gambling. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I went shopping for something else. Miniature cameras. Discreet. High resolution. Motion triggered. Within 24 hours, I had a full set installed in every key room of the house. Study, bedroom, guest room, closets. Even a small one pointed directly at the jewelry safe. If he wanted to rob me, I'd have the footage. If he tried to lie, I'd have the evidence. This time there would be no more gaslighting. I played my part beautifully. That weekend I made French toast and drizzled it with warm maple syrup. I left notes in his briefcase. I even greeted Mrs. Carter with a polite smile when she called to complain about the hospital bills. But behind the curtain I watched it all unfold. Logan's behavior grew erratic. He started missing meetings. He snapped at waiters. He took longer drives at night, sometimes coming back with bloodshot eyes and shaking hands. He was spiraling. And I was recording. Jamie noticed the change in me. Your posture's different, she said at the gallery one morning. You stand like a woman who's got the upper hand. Maybe I do, I said with a smile. Whatever it is, she said, you're glowing. A week later Logan stumbled into the bedroom at 2 a.m., reeking of whiskey and something sharp, like desperation. He sat on the edge of the bed and buried his face in his hands. I lost everything, he mumbled. I stayed still. Everything. He looked up, eyes wild. I borrowed from the wrong people. I thought I could win it back, Claire. I was going to surprise you with a vacation. With jewelry. Something big. You sold my jewelry. He blinked. How did you? I noticed, I said softly. He opened his mouth but no excuses came out. Just silence. He looked small. Like a boy who got caught stealing. I wanted to laugh. Instead I tucked the blanket over my lap and said, you should sleep. And then I turned off the light. The next morning I checked the camera feed. Logan had opened the safe again. He took 2 gold bangles and slipped them into his jacket. I downloaded the footage and saved it to a secure drive. Time-stamped. Crystal clear. Bulletproof. Jason, meanwhile, had completely disappeared from public life. No social media. No interviews. His name became synonymous with scandal. The luxury fashion world had moved on, eager to erase him. And Logan? He was slipping. Every lie, every theft, every stumble was now documented. And I wasn't even close to done. I told Logan I was going on a weekend retreat with Jamie. A gallery off-site, I said lightly, zipping up my duffel. Just us and a few other curators. Relaxing. Low pressure. He barely looked up from the couch. Sounds boring. I'll be back Sunday night, I smiled, leaning in to kiss his cheek. Try not to burn the house down. Can't make any promises, he muttered, eyes glued to his phone. But the moment I left the driveway, I circled around 2 blocks, parked in a hidden alleyway and opened my tablet. All the hidden cameras in the house were synced to a private feed. The living room, the hallway, the guest bedroom, the master suite. I waited, and just as I expected, he made contact. At 8:12 p.m. Logan received a text. Jason, you sure she's gone? Logan. She won't be back till Sunday. Come over. I watched, wine glass in hand, as the front door opened at 9:03 p.m. Jason walked in like he owned the place. His duffel slung casually over his shoulder, his grin easy. He kissed Logan in the hallway. A deep, familiar kiss. I zoomed in. No room for misinterpretation. By midnight they were in the master bedroom. My bed. The same one I'd bought. The same sheets I'd ironed and arranged with lavender sachets in the pillows. They didn't even bother to close the door. Everything was recorded in crystal clarity. Every kiss. Every lie. Every betrayal. They stayed together the whole weekend. Wine in the living room. Laughing in the kitchen. Whispering in the dark. Once Jason even wore one of my robes. I watched it all unfold. With the kind of calm only revenge can bring. Sunday evening I returned. I didn't bother sneaking in. I wanted them to see me. Wanted to see their faces break. The front door creaked as I opened it. Voices drifted from the kitchen. Logan. Laughing. Giggling. I stepped inside. They turned simultaneously. And froze. Jason's smile evaporated. Logan turned pale. I looked down at my watch. Oh. Am I early? No one spoke. I set down my purse and pulled out a sleek envelope, placing it gently on the marble counter between them. Footage, I said calmly. 36 hours of you two playing house. In my home. In my bed. Logan opened his mouth, but I raised a hand. Save it. Then I slapped him. Hard. The kind of slap that echoed. The kind that split lips and snapped head sideways. Jason flinched. I turned to him next. Should have stayed cancelled. Jason took a step back. Claire, listen. Don't ever say my name again. Then I pulled out my phone. Officer Patel? I said sweetly into the receiver. Yes. As we discussed. The footage is ready. He's here now. Logan blinked. What footage? The theft footage, I said, voice cold. You stole 6 pieces of my jewelry and pawned them for cash. I have it all on camera. Every single item. Time-stamped. With you holding them. You can't. Oh, I can. And I will. Unless. He swallowed. Unless. You sign these. I slid a manila folder across the table. Divorce papers. Clean. Final. No contest. And if I don't? Then the police come through that door in 10 minutes. And I leak the footage. All of it. To the press, to the internet. You'll lose everything. Jason here will be publicly outed again, and this time? I'll make sure it's not some soft tabloid piece. We're talking full-on humiliation. Jason stiffened. You wouldn't dare, he said. Oh, Jason, I smiled. I dared weeks ago. I pulled up my phone again and opened a group chat labeled Insurance. 3 unread messages. 3 journalists. All waiting for my green light. Logan looked at Jason. Jason looked at me. I let the silence stretch like a blade between us. Then Logan picked up the pen. His hands trembled. But he signed. Every page. I took the papers and placed them in my bag. And with that I stepped back and took a breath of freedom. You have 48 hours to leave this house, I said. My lawyer will follow up. You'll regret this, Logan muttered. No, I said, turning toward the door. I regret staying as long as I did. Jason followed me with his eyes, but not a word left his mouth. For once he knew better. Outside the air felt cleaner. I walked slowly down the path, the sun dipping low behind me. I was free. Not just from the marriage. But from the chains of pretending. Of enduring. Of begging for crumbs. Logan had broken his vows. But I had rebuilt myself. Now I was no longer the bride he discarded. I was the woman who burned the whole lie down. The last time I saw Logan, he was wearing a $1,000 suit and kissing Jason in the hallway of my home. Now he's just a name in a headline. former finance exec arrested for theft at local convenience store. The mugshot was blurry, grainy, but unmistakably him. Unshaven. Hollow-eyed. Clothes wrinkled and stained. No suit. No smirk. No crown. It started slowly. After I served the divorce papers, Logan moved into a corporate apartment downtown. I could tell he was banking on Jason to cushion the fall. But Jason had nothing left to give. The modeling contracts? Gone. The endorsement deals? Pulled. The investors? Scattered like rats when the scandal hit the tabloids. Jason was already broke. And now, thanks to me, he was radioactive. But Logan? He was still clinging to the illusion of power. Still telling himself it was temporary. So he gambled. He began using Jason's identity to open new lines of credit, high-interest unsecured loans from digital lenders. He forged Jason's signature. Stole his ID. Even pawned off a fake story about Jason being in rehab to explain why he was managing the funds. By the time Jason realized, Logan had racked up over $80,000 in debt under his name. And loan sharks don't care about details. The attack came late one night. Jason was leaving a dive bar downtown when 3 men jumped him outside a dim alleyway. They broke his leg, his wrist, and his face. The news called it a suspected mugging. But I knew better. Loan sharks always start with the knees. Jason's modeling career was finished. Permanent limp. Facial reconstruction surgery. Multiple lawsuits filed in his name. He went off the grid after that. And Logan? He vanished from the tabloids, only to reappear on bank watch lists. With no more access to Jason's credit, Logan turned to desperation. He tried to liquidate everything. He sold his car, his stocks, his Rolex. Then he started selling off the Carter family properties, houses inherited from his father's side. His mother's lake house went first. Then the vineyard his uncle used to manage. Then the last remaining Carter estate on Oak Ridge Drive. I only knew because the real estate agency listed it online. I watched the photos rotate on the screen. Faded wallpaper, dusty chandeliers, cracked tiles. The remnants of a name that once meant something. Now going for less than half market value. I almost felt something. Almost. His job went next. He was terminated quietly, conduct unbecoming, they said. Rumor had it he was caught using company funds for personal matters. No one cared to investigate. There was nothing left to salvage. No friends. No family. No future. I saw him once. From across the street. It was raining, of course it was, and he was standing outside a liquor store shaking as he tried to light a cigarette. His clothes didn't fit right anymore. His eyes were sunken. He looked 30 pounds lighter, but not in the good way. The light turned green. I walked past him without a word. He didn't recognize me. Or maybe he did. And just couldn't look me in the eye. The final nail came in the form of a grainy security cam video. Logan, former Carter heir, former golden boy, caught on camera slipping a pack of cigarettes and a candy bar into his coat at a 24-hour mini-mart. He was arrested 5 minutes later. He didn't make bail. He didn't even have a lawyer. By the time the court processed his case, he'd already been moved to a government halfway shelter. No visitors. No press. No crown. Jamie showed me the article one morning over breakfast. She raised an eyebrow. Want to toast to it? I shook my head, folding the paper neatly. I already did, I said, sipping my tea. People talk about closure like it's something you chase. But I didn't have to chase anything. Logan had destroyed himself just like I knew he would. Me. I was still standing. Still growing. Still building. He broke his vows. He ruined himself. And I built an empire from the ashes of his lies. The sun poured through the wide, arched windows of my new apartment. Real light. Real warmth. It bathed the wooden floors in gold, kissed the cream linen curtains I picked myself, and made my coffee table, a refurbished piece from a street vendor, glow like it belonged in a magazine spread. No shared closets. No suspicious credit card charges. No one sleeping with their business partner behind my back. Just me. Just peace. I moved in quietly without ceremony. No social media post. No announcements. Just a single key on a single ring. It fit into the lock like it had been waiting for me all along. I hung one thing on the wall that first night. A small framed quote from my mother written in her handwriting. We survive. But more than that, we rise. And that's exactly what I did. The art studio came next. Not a gallery. Not a museum. Just a humble 2-floor loft on a quiet street with sun-bleached bricks and ivy curling around the windows. The smell of turpentine and charcoal lingered in the corners. The walls were bare at first, naked, waiting. But then came the canvases. The colors. The breath. My breath. Jamie was the first to visit. She stood in the center of the room, arms crossed, staring at one of the large oil pieces near the back. I always knew you had taste, she said. Didn't know you had guts. I laughed. Neither did I. I started mentoring young artists, mostly women who'd left careers, marriages, or worse. They'd drift into my studio looking lost, and I would hand them a brush before they could overthink. I'm not an artist, one of them had said. You survived, I told her. Now make something from it. They did. It wasn't about revenge anymore. Not really. Logan had already destroyed himself, and Jason had vanished from every social feed like a ghost that had finally run out of air. But I didn't need them to suffer anymore. Because I wasn't looking backward. I was building forward. People started talking about me like I was someone else. Claire Bennett? You mean the artist? She runs that studio on Ivy Lane. Amazing woman. She was married to that Carter guy, right? What happened to him again? I never corrected them. Let them forget Logan Carter. Let them remember me. On a quiet Wednesday afternoon, Jamie dropped by with fresh croissants and a new bottle of Pinot. She walked into the main gallery room and froze in front of a new piece. I hadn't told her about it. I hadn't told anyone. It was tall, 6 feet by 4, and layered in deep crimsons, blacks, and sharp whites. A woman's silhouette stood at the center, her hands open, her feet bare. Behind her, a storm. In front of her, light. At the bottom of the canvas I'd scrawled one word. Rebirth. Jamie took a slow breath. That's you. I stepped beside her. Yes, I said. It is. You sure you're ready to show it? I'm ready for the world to see her. She glanced at me, her voice softer now. Do you regret anything? I thought about it. The years I wasted trying to fix someone broken. The bruises that never showed on my skin but lived behind my eyes. The nights I cried alone in a house that never felt like mine. And then I looked at the room around me. The canvases, the light, the sound of brushes gently tapping against glass jars. No, I said at last. Because I made all of this from the pieces. Jamie smiled. You really built an empire. No, I corrected gently. I became one. As the sun dipped low and cast long golden rays across the floor, I stood alone before the painting. My hands were steady. My voice, soft but sure, broke the silence. He poisoned his vows. But I turned the venom into fire. He buried me. But I built a kingdom from the soil he left behind. I don't wear his name. I don't wear his shame. I am Clare Bennett. And this is my rebirth. The end.